I personally do not trust someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene, a proven bigot and anti-Semite, on the issues of what is good for Gazans and Israelis.
She puts this political facade and partisanship above actual morality at the end of the day. That's what I'm recognizing. She calls Marjorie Taylor Greene a bigot because of her statements regarding immigration and everything else. At the end of the day, though, what is worse, statements or somebody like Richie Torres who's actively funding and justifying a genocide for 3 years?
Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez drew some backlash over the weekend after she seemed to condemn the idea of working with former Republican House member Marjorie Taylor Greene on the issue of Israel and Gaza. Now, is political purity more important than stopping a genocide? You can decide for yourselves, but first you should hear AOC's full statement. Take a look.
I care about results. I care about results. Now, there are certain places certain areas where I don't think that we should ignore some folks' record on some of these issues, right? It's about where we trust intent, where we trust where those outcomes are going. I personally do not trust someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene, a proven bigot and anti-Semite, on the issues of what is good for Gazans and Israelis. I don't think that it benefits our movement in that instance to align the left with white nationalists. I don't think it serves us. And so I think it's about looking at the context, the place, the results, the outcomes, intentions, and where we think that train would go.
I'm interested in knowing where AOC's train is going, because she has failed to secure a single win when it comes to foreign policy, when it comes to economic policy, honestly, when it comes to anything. So her theory of change has not really borne much fruit, but I could be wrong. Cenk, your 2 cents.
Yeah, I'm gonna go a little longer than 2 cents here because I want to respond to that clip. So I also want to know where her train of thought is going. She's slowly turning into Kamala Harris. What was that? Long pauses because she's nervous and doesn't want to get any words wrong. Word salads about intent that are hard to decipher, and repetition. So I care about results. I care about results. Okay, I got it. So,
but do you?
No, that's where I'm going, Anna. So wait, if you care about results, Marjorie Taylor Greene actually introduced a bill that would have cut $500 million from the money we're sending to Israel, and you voted no. I care about results. I care about results. So Marjorie Taylor Greene is better on the issue of Israel than AOC is. So that's a fact, no matter how many people on the left will lie to you about it. Oh, no, but AOC is better on other issues. Great, hey, on other issues, I'm on AOC's side. On this issue, no, Marjorie Taylor Greene is definitely better, and she did it when her party was in charge. She said, hey, Trump is wrong, and she paid a huge price for it.
Huge.
When Biden and Kamala Harris were in charge and financing the genocide of the Palestinians, all we got from AOC was kissy kissies for Biden and Kamala Harris.
In fact.
So those are all facts, super uncomfortable facts for a bunch of leftists who all care about partisanship and their brands, and don't care about Gazans. All right, go ahead.
Pause. I gotta actually, there's a difference between liberals and leftists. Anyone who's familiar with the politics of that understand the difference and the distinction. I'm actually really proud of most leftists that I've seen online who are actually incredibly principled on this issue. And for them, they're like, listen, I hear what you're saying about Marjorie Taylor Greene, her past, what her stance is on other issues. But on the issue of Israel, she came over to our side. And if you have an opportunity to work with people across the political spectrum in order to make progress on this issue, you should do it. The liberals, though, that's a different story.
Yeah, so look, all these terms get confusing,
but
I'm glad.
Important.
But I'm glad you're clarifying, because I think the great majority of the left is on the right side here, and I'm thrilled to see it. And you guys are awesome, and I love you for being able to figure it out despite. And what I'm the people that I was referring to, some of the leftist hosts, okay, or left-wing hosts or whatever, right? Not like there's Breaking Points is great on it, Drop Site News is terrific on it, all the reporters, etc. There's so many people that are on the right side of this, but some people just can't let the partisanship go. It's like fried their brain, or they think it's valuable to their brand or whatever niche they're going for or something like that. But guys, this is not complicated. I'll get back to more of my thoughts on it in a second after Anna gives you more of the story. But the reason why it's not complicated is, what are we asking to work with them on? Are we working with them on them becoming president? No. Are we working on our mutual wedding together? No. Are we working on like immigration together? No. We're working on ending the war. So on what grounds could you possibly say no to that alliance? We're looking to free America from Israel's control over us. On what grounds do you say no to that? That doesn't mean you have to agree with them on the carried interest loophole. This is not at all complicated.
No, guys, and the other thing is, when people on the left realize that there's an issue that they agree with the right on, do you think right-wing members of Congress are sitting around asking this? Do you think they're having debates about, ooh, should we work with the people who agree with us on this matter? No, they understand power. They understand winning. They want to win. They want to succeed. So they don't have these ridiculous debates. I do think there's an issue with liberals and their obsession with partisan purity. And honestly, once you free yourselves from the shackles of seeing everything through the lens of partisan politics, you become liberated. You become more open-minded. You start to notice and see strategies that you can deploy in order to win. So apparently Trump is calling for unity after another violent incident. But the way this gets covered depends on who's trying to spin it and who's willing to call it out. On the right, the framing turns Trump into some kind of heroic victim, a uniquely important figure being targeted because he's just that powerful. On the left, the focus is on Trump's long, obvious relationship with violent rhetoric and the political climate he helped create. Same event, completely different narrative. And that is exactly why I recommend Ground News. It's a website and app that pulls together reporting from across the political spectrum so you can compare headlines side by side, see the bias distribution of the coverage, check the factuality ratings of the sources, and even see who owns the outlets behind the reporting. Because once you start looking at coverage that way, it becomes a lot easier to see when the media isn't informing you, it's managing your perception. Ground News also has a blind spot feed, which highlights stories that one side of the political spectrum is barely covering at all, so you're not trapped inside the version of events your media bubble wants you to accept. If you're tired of being fed somebody else's narrative, I genuinely recommend Ground News. Go to ground.news/TYT or scan the QR code to get 40% off Ground News Vantage Plan.
Yeah, and you're so right, Anna, because there's this incredibly bizarre alliance between just a select couple of leftist hosts with liberal audiences that have migrated over from MS Now to online. And they're like cultivating this 80-year-old audience, like, yeah, Democrat, Team Democrat, hate all the Republicans. Oh, they're helping us get rid of Israel's control and end this disastrous war. No, reject them, yay, Democratic Party. Like, we're going back to the Hillary Clinton years. And you're totally right that even their own audiences are like, no, bro.
Yes, you're right. Okay, so in fact, I wanna show you some of the backlash that AOC did get. First of all, let me just note that Marjorie Taylor Greene did respond, and she said that AOC refused to vote for my amendment to strip funding for Israel. She can run her mouth all she wants, but votes are the only thing that matters, not a bunch of words and nasty name calling.
Facts.
That is facts, it's true. And I think it's important to hear from a Palestinian on this matter, considering the fact that Israel carried out a genocide of Palestinians in Gaza and continues to do so. So Wally Rashid is a Palestinian content creator. I'm a huge fan of his content, highly recommend watching his show. But here's what he had to say about the matter.
I'm talking right now about Israel's undue influence on the United States, she still treats that separate thing as just another issue. I'm asking you to at least recognize that there are people that are recognizing this undue foreign influence and others that just treat it as another one of their talking point issues. She puts this political facade and partisanship above actual morality at the end of the day. That's what I'm recognizing. She calls Marjorie Taylor Greene a bigot because of her statements regarding immigration and everything else, which personally I think are disgusting. If she's ever said something blatantly racist, I don't support that. At the end of the day, though, what is worse, statements or somebody like Richie Torres who's actively funding and justifying a genocide for 3 years? We're starting to make false equivalences as if words have equal weight to voting on genocide and then justifying the genocide you voted on. Words are not as big of a deal as voting on, justifying, and taking part in a genocide.
I agree with him wholeheartedly on that. And by the way, guys, one other thing that I'll say is I acknowledge that Marjorie Taylor Greene in her past has said some horrific Islamophobic things. But the one thing that has happened over the last nearly 3 years is a lot of Americans, including Marjorie Taylor Greene, woke up to the reality of Israel and what Israel is actually up to. And suddenly the wool has been pulled off people's eyes and they can see, or the heads, and they can see what's actually going on. And while it would be nice for Marjorie Taylor Greene to address every specific instance of her saying something deeply offensive, fact of the matter is she went on The View and on CNN and apologized for her rhetoric, apologized for the way that she would talk about Muslim people, right? And realized that she was part of the problem in our political system. You have to give her credit for that because it's not easy to apologize in today's political climate. But more importantly, the reason why I know she wasn't full of it on this issue specifically, on the issue of Israel, Gaza, and what's happening in the Middle East is because Marjorie Taylor Greene was willing to go against her own party and more importantly, the man she supported in every election, Donald Trump, to the point where he started basically telling her when she was reaching out to him about the threats she was experiencing as a result of their tiff, he basically said, you deserve it. Your son deserves the death threats because you dared to cross me. But Marjorie Taylor Greene did the right thing anyway on this issue. And to erase that, I think, signals to anyone else who might have a come to Jesus moment, don't do it, don't be public about it because you're not gonna get any positive reinforcement. No one's gonna applaud you for it. In fact, we're just gonna crush you over it.
Yeah, and so what does that do? That discourages people from coming to our side on the most important issues of the day.
Exactly.
And so, in fact, as I saw the whole thing, I thought, is she trying to help Israel, AOC? And I'll get back to that as to why. But first, we want to ask you guys, because some of you might disagree. Look, from our perspective, nothing wrong with disagreeing, okay? We hash it out and we try to get to the right answers. So on TYT.com, we're asking, should we reject MTG's help in ending the war and Israel's influence in the country? Yes, AOC is right. She's too toxic on other issues to have any relationship with her. That's getting killed so far. Small, tiny amount of votes. Whenever we do this, we just start the voting now. So you can go to TYT.com now. B says, no, our house is on fire and we need all the help we can get on ending this war and our toxic relationship with Israel. And that's the one that's winning right now.
So let me give you a few more details and then I want to revisit the poll and see how it's doing toward the end of the segment, okay? Because people rightfully called out AOC's hypocrisy on this, right? So let's go to Kate Willett, who says, Marjorie Taylor Greene is a right-wing crank, but so is Ted Cruz. No one was even asking AOC to work with Marjorie Taylor Greene in the same way she did with Cruz. But the idea that you have to take a centrist position because a singular Republican sides with the left on one issue isn't even something AOC normally believes. And so she shares a screenshot of a CNN article regarding AOC's willingness back in 2019 to work alongside Ted Cruz in order to pass legislation banning members of Congress from serving as lobbyists immediately after they leave Congress. Later, by the way, she worked with Republican lawmakers in drafting legislation to ban members of Congress from trading individual stocks. Now, both pieces of legislation went nowhere, but the point here is that she was willing to work with all sorts of Republicans that we have issues with on a whole host of political issues. But when it comes to the topic of Israel and genocide and war, I can't work with Marjorie Taylor Greene because she's bad on other issues.
Yeah, see, unlike her, we won't be a hypocrite on this. I'm not gonna go and turn around and go, oh, look at that liberal. She worked with Ted Cruz. You should banish AOC forever. No.
We applauded her for it, by the way.
Of course we did, because
we care about the issue more.
Because think about it, guys. So that bill was on banning congressmen becoming lobbyists afterwards so they can make a lot of money by betraying us and selling us out. Why would I want anyone to vote no on that bill? I want them to vote yes. And if Ted Cruz is voting yes, as much as I loathe Ted Cruz, I'm gonna take yes for an answer. Honestly, on that issue, what kind of moron would say, no, I don't want your vote?
Right.
Because then you would only be punching yourself in the face. You would be hurting the cause that you are saying that you're in favor of.
In fact, Cenk, in the same appearance over the weekend, in the same statement that she made about Marjorie Taylor Greene, she went on to talk about the importance of working with people across the aisle. I'm not kidding. Here's the rest of it. Take a look.
I think it's really about what our outcomes are. And to be honest, there are some areas where things will not get done if they're partisan because they are anti-establishment. There is bipartisan consensus on keeping and protecting stock trading in Congress. And so it's going to require a massive bipartisan consensus of people willing to come together across those differences to get it done.
How is genocide in Israel different, though? The establishment overwhelmingly supports Israel and will do anything Israel wants. So how is the stock trading situation any different from policy pertaining to Israel in the Middle East?
So I only have two potential theories as to why she's doing this. I'm gonna get to them in a second, but she called Marjorie Taylor Greene a white nationalist, anti-Semite, and a bigot. That's exactly what the establishment calls her, to discredit her opinion on Israel, which is the exact topic we're talking about. So you're okay working with Republicans across the aisle, whether it's Ted Cruz or fighting the establishment on stock trading, et cetera. Great, we agree with that, right? But you say, but on genocide, what? It's not important enough? On the war in Iran, banning stock trading is important enough to work with Ted Cruz and others on, but the war in Iran is not important enough to work on? In fact, you're gonna hurt the cause by having one of the leading right-wingers in the country that is driving millions of right-wingers to our side. You're gonna torpedo her efforts by calling her an anti-Semite, like her opposition to Israel is anti-Semitic. Well, that definitely hurts our cause.
Well,
so that's hurting the movement, not just Marjorie Taylor Greene. Okay, but I've got a lot more. She says, what's good for the Gazans and the Israelis? Look, in the old days, I would have talked about the Palestinians and the Israelis, and I want two-state solution, and I still want that. But I'm not overly concerned about what the Israelis need right now.
Someone needed to say it.
Yeah, like,
someone needed to say it, Yuger.
Yeah, so she's still talking about like, yes, but we also have to protect the beloved Israelis. Do we?
Do we?
Okay, so that's not really my top priority right now. And she said Gazans instead of Palestinians. I don't know if that means anything. It's a little strange, but no big deal. Okay, I don't want to nitpick. Okay, but then she started talking about like intent matters, outcomes matter. But wait. The outcome is we don't want the war to continue. Marjorie Taylor Greene is helping us to try to stop the war.
Or we want to stop sending them money.
That's an outcome that matters a lot. But yeah. You said the outcome doesn't matter when you voted against her resolution.
She cares about results.
Okay, but so then how does that lead to the outcome or the results? Then you talk about intent. Well, Marjorie Taylor Greene proved her intent on these issues by taking a political bullet for them.
Yep.
You can't prove intent any better than that we are willing to take on Donald Trump and the Republican Party. An intent you couldn't show when Joe Biden and Kamala Harris were in charge.
In fact,
okay.
Let's not forget what AOC said of Kamala Harris during her speech at the DNC, the Democratic National Convention, in the lead up to the 2024 presidential election, because AOC flat out lied about what Kamala Harris was up to. Take a look.
She is working tirelessly to secure a ceasefire in Gaza and bringing hostages home.
Let us be frank. The Biden administration, of which of course Kamala Harris was part of, prepared, the runway for what we're experiencing today under Trump. There was no indication that anyone in the Biden administration was working around the clock to secure a ceasefire. In fact, the Israelis, after the election, made it abundantly clear that no one in the Biden administration demanded a ceasefire, demanded that they stop the brutal, barbaric activity that they were carrying out in Gaza. So
the establishment loved that speech she made.
Loved it.
The establishment loved her attack against Marjorie Taylor Greene. I see all these liberal establishment Democrats going, "Oh, way to go, girl! Okay, yay! War with Iran's great." I mean, it's bad. So but we shouldn't fight it too hard. We should fight the white nationalists harder. Yeah. Spare me. So, but nevertheless, I'm going to read at least one of your super chats here because I want to give the other side an opportunity to weigh in. Anthony Gramo said AOC has a 90% correct voting record on Gaza versus Marjorie Taylor Greene, who has voted 34% of the time with us. AOC, Tlaib, Omar are way better than MTG on this issue. You're just fundamentally wrong. Anthony, it's a good point that you're making. I'm glad that you're bringing that point in because I want to address it. So did Marjorie Taylor Greene vote the right way in the past? No, she didn't, okay, even on this issue. But she has now turned around completely. And since her turnaround, she does have a better voting record than AOC on this, but not Tlaib and Omar. Tlaib and Omar were one of only 6 people in all of Congress to vote with Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Correct.
And so did Summer Lee, and so did Al Green, and so did Tom Massey. So, but in Tlaib and Omar's vote in that issue, you can see that AOC could have voted with Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar and Summer Lee. She chose not to vote with them.
Right.
That was an active decision. It wasn't like no Democrat voted for it. So that point where Marjorie Taylor Greene turns around is important. And again, Anthony, I don't need you to love Marjorie Taylor Greene or agree with her on any other issue. But on this issue lately, she's been a ferocious fighter against what Israel's doing and against the war. And she's all over media spreading that message to millions of right-wingers, independents, etc. I see Ro Khanna on our side fighting all over media on that. I see Bernie from time to time. I see Chris Van Hollen, he should do more, but he's a great senator and doing the right thing. I don't see AOC at all.
I don't either.
Fire breathing on this issue, except she's telling me how I got to be concerned for the Israelis and then
she's keeping that powder dry, that's for sure. I'm gonna go to one final video here because you're about to see a Democratic member of Congress who's genuine in her concern over this issue and had her own thoughts about Marjorie Taylor Greene. Let's watch.
Shifting gears a little bit, I did want to uplift us for a minute and play some comments from your former colleague, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Let's watch this.
The American people have to open their eyes and deal with reality and deal with truth. And the truth is, look, you may have supported President Trump for 10 years like I did, like you have, but this is not the same man.
What's your reaction to seeing comments like that from Marjorie Taylor Greene, someone who's not always been, I think, as collegial to you as she should have been?
They are not just coming out like the other ones that you'd mentioned, where they're saying this action is wrong, right? They're saying, I am done with you. We should give them credit for that. The fact that they've had this wake-up call to finally seeing this con man, this corrupt, chaotic man for what he is. The fact that they understand that he never really had any principles outside of uplifting his ego.
I love that statement so much by Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, because again, look, there's two things at play. She understands that humans are complicated and they can change their minds. And honestly, we need to foster the kind of environment that encourages people, that celebrates people when they change their minds or when they evolve on an issue and come to the right side of an issue. You want to encourage that because you want more people to feel comfortable doing it. But the other thing is, Congresswoman Omar understands how you wield power, how you move toward progress, how you secure wins legislatively. You don't do it by shunning people over disagreements in the past. You do it with an open heart by welcoming people and being willing to work with people who come to your side on an issue. And that's what happened with Marjorie Taylor Greene. We didn't go over to her side, she came over to our side. And that should be celebrated, not condemned.
All right, last things for me, but they're all important. Look, the two potential reasons she's doing this. The smaller one is some people think that she's going to run for president, Ro Khanna's going to run for president. Those are the two people in the Bernie Sanders lane. So she's taking a shot at working with MTG because Ro Khanna was on TV talking about working with MTG on the Epstein files and on the war. Okay.
Wait. AOC is thinking about running for president?
Yes. Okay, so do you understand the positioning? Okay, and the second thing she went after was, no, it's okay to work with the Republicans on the stock trading thing. Some Republicans are throwing dirt on Ro Khanna on stock trading. Like no one else knows that, and it's not true. But it's curious that that's the one bill she said that's okay to work with the Republicans on. So this might be her like amateurish way of like angling for that lane. Okay, so that's my
run for a Senate seat. What are you doing?
And by the way, in that
run for a Senate seat. What are you doing?
And by the way, we're all on your side if you run for a Senate seat. Then you unite everyone. I know you don't want to unite, okay? But by the way, they asked her that question. Axelrod did about running for president. There was polite applause. You could check the tape for yourself. Then they asked about running for the New York Senate seat, and there was thunderous applause. Okay, that's her
because
own
the Senate seat
followers.
makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it does, and it helps the movement.
Yeah.
Stop hurting the movement, start helping the movement, then everybody's on your side.
That's not to say that there's no possibility for a presidential run in the future. I just think it's premature.
That's okay. So,
Anyway,
anyway, that's a minor thing. It might not be that at all. The major thing to me, and this is what a lot of people are speculating, is that these are signals to the establishment. Don't worry, I'm on your side. When you need it, I'll call opponents of Israel anti-Semites and white nationalists, okay? When they need the vote, I might be there, I might not be there, right? And so, and don't worry, I'm a partisan all the way. So Richie Torres, a dog for Israel, never gets criticized. I looked it up, never criticized. Josh Gottheimer, one of the most corrupt Democrats, totally corporate, totally conservative, 100% Israel first, never criticized. But you're criticizing people who are fighting against Israel and against this war. And you chose this moment to do that. Look, I'll end on two things. One is Sean Ryan had a great line about this, and it's similar to the Palestinian brother we showed you there. He said, our house is on fire. So I'm not interested on any other issue until we put the fire out. We don't even control our own country anymore. So when we don't control our country, why are we having debates about other issues? Our opinions are irrelevant on those issues. We need to put this fire out first, get control of our country back, then go back into debating all these wonderful issues, right? And lastly, guys, think about what they're asking you to do when they ask you to reject Marjorie Taylor Greene. They make it seem like reject her as a human being, as a potential candidate, etc. But that's not the conversation. The conversation is, are you rejecting our help on this critical issue? She's out all over TV and media saying, stop the war, stop funding Israel. That is what we all agree with. As Anna said, she's coming to our position. Massey, Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly have come to our position, and that's amazing. If you keep spitting in their face, that does not help incentivize other people to come to our position, whether they're going to vote in Congress or they're going to convince their millions of followers to join us. So on this issue, the actual thing we're talking about, not some theoretical, hypothetical other thing, why would we reject their help? That is utterly irrational. And you'd only do it is if you don't really care about this issue and you care more about partisan games. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.